So I finally bolted down the floor, one part of the floor on the International. And here's how I did it. So as you can see, I'm using these big ass bolts here. These are 1/2 inch bolts, 1/2 inch 13. They're pretty common. I actually got these at Home Depot, I think. I haven't put the washers for them yet because I don't have the washers. So I just kind of put these in. But how I did it is I used these coupling nuts. That's what they're called. Again, at Home Depot, these are fairly common. But I went a step further and I actually blocked off the ends, as you can see. So what I did is I welded a piece of threaded rod or the end of a bolt in here. I cut it, so I threaded it in, cut it. It's hard to cut it off and then thread it in. It's much easier having it threaded in and then just cutting it off rather than trying to thread in a small piece. So it goes up to there, probably about a 7 to 10 millimeter. And then I welded these things in the spot that I wanted. Made sure it was flush here with the top. And then I used the scribe. So the problem with having the blocked end is it's harder, you can't mark the hole through the inside. So my original idea was to get a center punch and mark it, and after it's welded there, just punch it in through the hole. But it's kind of hard to do it anyways because I don't really have access. It's kind of hard to get in there with your hammer, with your hand, with my hand, much less with the hammer. So I just use the scribe to mark around it like that. Obviously when it's in there. So I mark it on the plate. And then from that I just flip one of these around, mark the rest of it, and then I use one that doesn't have the end plugged and just mark the hole. And if the hole is if it's a bit off center, that's okay, because I'd like to have some adjustment, some movement. So I actually drilled the hole a bit bigger, but I'd like to get as precise as possible, obviously, right? And then these ones, which I think came out pretty nice, I did them in a slightly different way. It's just the same thing, same purpose as these ones here. The reason why I block the ends off is I don't want crap, rust getting into the threads. With this here, the threads are completely isolated. They're completely sealed off. So unfortunately, this here is not stainless, but it's still it's very thick, and it's fully enclosed, so it should last many years. It will last many years. And it's under the floor anyways, so there's not going to be a lot of rust. It's going to be painted, primed, and painted, and very well sealed anyways as well. But as you can see, it's pretty thick. So these other ones here, they're slightly different. I just think they look really cool. They're slightly different because I actually used the end of the bolt to plug off the ends. So on these ones, I use like the threaded part of the bolt without the head. This one I actually had the thread and the head part of the bolt in. So instead of welding on the end, I actually had to weld it on the side, and which left a bunch of bumps, right? From welding, there's a bunch of bumps and high spots, so that if I try to just put it in directly like that, it wouldn't be flat. It would be slightly crooked, which I don't. And you'd have a gap as well, and gaps, water gets into gaps, right, and little holes and crevices. So I didn't want that. So all I did was throw these on the lathe and smoothen the sides out a bit, and they actually look really nice, I think. Yeah, these little imperfections here, that doesn't matter. What matters is the inside part, the threads. So this is how you bolt the floor. I'm actually using really thick plate here for the floor, as you can see. Like, it won't even bend. It's pretty heavy stuff. But it was outside and it was rusting. So I had to clean it up. It wasn't this clean. Had some like surface rust, looked pretty bad. But I just got the wire wheel and cleaned it off, and it'll be fine. Obviously, we'll get this all painted afterwards. Which I already have this piece in. It's a very, very heavy duty floor. Even for me. So next step will be to get these and have them welded there on the corners. Would be nice to have a few in the middle as well. I went ahead and I actually did the whole box of them. Another option, instead of welding the ends in, would be to just use a bolt to plug it in. But so I could have just done this here. This is pretty well. This is what I did over here. I just welded the joint in as well. But I could have left it without welding. But welding is by far the best. That's like, as I usually like to say, and my business motto is 100% is not enough. So this here is maybe like a 500%. So these bolts are actually stainless, which are really nice. So ideally the whole thing would be stainless, but there's the cost as well, right? So cost and time. Stainless, they didn't have the stainless coupling nuts readily available, so I'd have to go in, I'd have to look for them, call, order them, and they'd be very expensive. This year I just see, I'm in a hurry as well, so I kind of do the best with what I have. Go with what you got sometimes. But this is still way overkill. Much more sturdy than, you see, a lot of these floors, they'd actually just have self-tapping screws, and I actually went with 1/2-inch bolts. So that's already a huge difference. Anyways, yeah, there you go. Not much else to say. Have a good day.